Global Center for Religious Research, founded and headed by Dr. Darren Slade. Keep in mind that each of these presentations are video recorded, so the information presented here will be available free of charge to you just for coming out and supporting us. So thank you for that. Now, for those attending live, feel free to use the chat box to discuss with other attendees or to ask questions as they come up. Our speakers will do their best to answer your questions at the end of their presentations. You'll also have the option to unmute yourself at the end so that you can ask directly the presenter questions by your own. And with that said, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce you all to our co-presenters, Gila and David. Dr. Gila Oren is a leading senior lecturer, head of marketing studies, and a faculty member of the School of Business Administration at the College of Management. She holds BA and MA degrees from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and a PhD from the Faculty of Management at Ben Gurion University of the Negev, 2015. Our other co-presenter, Dr. David Hadar, is the chair of the English Literature and Linguistics Department at Beat Beryl College. His book, Affiliated Identities in Jewish American Literature, came out in 2020. Thank you so much for coming here and giving your talk. Over to you now.
Okay. Just sharing my screen, and of course, Alex is on.
Your card reading.
Okay, and Gila, you just tell me when you want me to turn the mic.
Okay, so hello everybody, and I hope that we'll manage to actually explain the research that we're in love with. And the research is dealing with the gratitude notebooks, which is actually a name that we gave as a final stage of heritage tourism rite of passage. And before we start, I actually want to devote this presentation and this research to Alex. Alex is actually the teacher of all guides of Poland. Everybody that is teaching Holocaust in Israel is actually Alex student. And Alex is now captured in Gaza. And even just a few days ago, we got a message that he's the people that came back from prison, or from, I don't know how you call the prison that they are in, said that he's giving them history lectures in prison. So we want to dedicate this research and this presentation to Alex, and we're all waiting for him and for all the others to come back, and that the situation here will be a bit better than what it is in now. So this is Alex. He's really unbelievable. So our research is dealing with the gratitude notebooks and the fact that it is ratifying the contract. And in a minute, we'll explain what contract, what notebooks, and what we are speaking about. So actually, since the 1980s, so there's a big, really a huge amount of Israeli students that are going on educational tours to Poland. It started in small numbers, but it really became in a large scale, that a lot of Israeli students are going to Poland on an educational tour that is organized by the schools and the Ministry of Education. These trips actually serve on three main vectors. The one of them is the Jewish history and the life before the Holocaust, the life that were perished there, and all this aspect. The second one is the intensification of evil and the Holocaust itself. And the third vector, the third educational perspective, is Poland and Poland and the history of Europe, in order to, enable this whole thing to happen. The tours, as said, are organized by the educational institutions and the Ministry of Education, and it is accomplished by teachers and Shoah educators. This is a specific, I wouldn't say job, but a specific kind of a job that people are certified to be Shoah Holocaust educators, mainly by Yad Vashem. There are another two institutions that can certify people to be Shoah educator, but mainly it's done by Yad Vashem. And actually on those buses, you have teachers and you have a Shoah educator, the guide of the tour. And even though there is considerable criticism to those trips, but still, like until the COVID actually, so thousands of Israeli youth were traveling to Poland in this procedure of educational tours. So this is actually the context of our research. Well, I'm sure that you're familiar with the concept of rite of passage. It's an anthropological concept that actually points attention to the transmission of people between stages in life, like when people are on birth, on bar mitzvah, or on this between childhood and youth, which is common in all societies. Then when people are becoming from one person to a family on marriage, etc. So this is an anthropological concept. But and this concept, this rite of passage is having three parts, three sections: the separation from everyday life to a liminal stage where the ritual is happening, and then the coming back to society in a new stage. Like there is the routine before the ritual, there is the ritual itself, and then the coming back to reality in a new stage after the rite of passage. And there
with
is
a new role.
Sorry?
You have a new role in society.
You have a new role in society. You are as if someone new with a new role in your new stage. And there's a lot of research that is showing the trips to Poland, the educational tours to Poland, as the civil rite of passage in the Israeli society, as if there is before and after of those kids that travel to Poland. The whole trip is kind of a ritual that they are passing a transformation during the trip, the tour. It's always almost not polite to call it a trip on a tour, which has such a touristic connotation, but there is specific, mainly Feldman, that addresses these tours as a rite of passage in the civil Israeli society. So this is the context of what we're speaking about.
And also there's a lot of literature about types of tourism as rites of passage and as pilgrimages as rites of passage. So we're connecting to it from the Israeli perspective and the tourism perspective.
Okay. And another body of knowledge that this is relevant to is the cultural tourism and the heritage tourism. Heritage tourism is the visiting of tangible and intangible aspects of culture that are passed down from generation to generation. It's a huge sector of tourism in general. More and more people are visiting heritage sites. There is in the literature there is a talk about whether it's increasing because there's more and more demand or more and more supply, but all agree that heritage helps create a sense of belonging and identity, and more in modern life people are seeking for identity and belonging and feeling connected, and this is one of the explanations for the huge increase in heritage tourism. More and more people are practicing in heritage tourism. And now when we take the three of them, so I want to tell you that it's quite often that at the end of the tour, sometimes spontaneously, but sometimes planned. We know that it's planned because the notebooks themselves are brought from Israel in advance. So the teachers are giving the kids a notebook that is passed between the kids during like the last day, and each one of it's not kids, it's the youth that participated in this voyage, in this educational tour, they are writing something to the guide. We called it gratitude notebooks because we'll talk about it in a minute, that a lot of what is written there is thank you, yeah? But this is something that is sometimes happening when this notebook is passed from one child to another, and in this riding bus, they write something to the guide, and then in some kind of a ceremony or in the airport or something, this notebook is given to the guide as a gratitude notebook that summarizes the writing of each one of the group. And we actually, in our research, looked at this on these notebooks as a literature corpus, and we wanted to see what the kids are writing or what the youth are writing to the guide at the end of this ceremony and this ritual de passage, where they are, after these 8 or 7 days, they travel in Poland in those Holocaust sites.
I want to add that it's quite amazing. You see the journey, the last day of the journey throughout the notebook. We don't have the quotes here, but sometimes you can see, yes, I'm here sitting on the bus on the way to the airport. And then by the end of the notebook, a different student says, yes, I'm on the airplane writing in this notebook. So you can really see the final day transpiring as they are filling out the notebook. Gila, we talked about this slide more or less, right? Yeah. Okay.
So actually, our research question was first of all, the research aims to analyze these notebooks as a literary text. This has never been done before, and nobody ever researched those notebooks before. And we wanted to actually find what is the role of those gratitude notebooks in the relevant context of those tours of Israeli youth to Poland, a whole week where they travel through history or through Holocaust sites, and what is the role of those notebooks in this context of those tours. So this is actually what we did.
Okay, so in terms of methods, it's definitely a qualitative research project. We had 20 notebooks from 5 different guides. One of the guides is men, the other 4 are women. And that means hundreds of participants, hundreds of individual letters. Our method was document content analysis. Document analysis is one of the 3 main quantitative methods, but it's less popular than interviews. It has the drawback of not being interactive. You can't ask a notebook any follow-up questions. On the other hand, it's not intrusive. And the fact that you are doing research doesn't change the text. So that's a great bonus when you're doing document analysis. You don't need to poke at the subjects. After gaining the text themselves, we did the thematic coding, identifying patterns and connecting between them, inspired by the grounded theory methods, with some help from the idea of rites of passage. In terms of ethics, we are dealing with teenagers, but as I said, the research project is non-intrusive. The researchers are not put in any discomfort because the texts are already written down and basically are public. It's more like studying something that was published on Facebook for the entire world to see than something that is personal interview. So we received full ethical support from Gila's college, because it's a kind of public or semi-public communication. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the findings, the thematic analysis. I chose some of the quotes that we use in our article, and I'm going to talk about them. Of course, the quotes are in Hebrew, but we translated them. I translated them, Gila checked them, and another reader also checked them. So I hope they both catch the style and quite accurately. You have an example of the letter itself here. I don't think it's the same letter, just so you have an idea of what it looks like. So the first theme, a very powerful one, the one that led us towards this direction of rite of passage, is that of transformation. The writers, the young writers, presenting themselves as having been changed. I'll read it out loud. The journey was a very significant journey for me in terms of digesting information related to the Holocaust in a more realistic and real way. Until now, I didn't understand the true meaning of what happened during this period of the Holocaust. But when we visited the extermination camps and saw all these places before our eyes, something awakened in me, something I couldn't feel in history class. So we see a kind of moment in the past, the history class, when there was no real understanding of the Holocaust. She could understand it as an academic subject, but there wasn't any true meaning, true understanding. But the trip as a whole, and especially the visits to the death camps, come as this movement, this transformation. So here the transformation is directly related to understanding the Holocaust. It's not always like that. There are other transformations. And this is also related to their new role. This is something Feldman talks about, of witness to the witness, going out to Europe, listening to survivors, and now they have this role of communicating the Holocaust to the entirety of Israeli society, especially to their peers, and maybe in the future to their children. This is a different students. Before the journey I had, in some parts, I still have many questions and doubts about my identity and my character. So there's a past, and to some extent a present, of being unsure about identity, about who she is, especially around identity here, especially around Jewish and Israeli identity. Throughout my life, I took pride in my Judaism and Israeliness so clearly that I could always criticize them. But only here, for the first time, did I feel a proud Jew in every aspect of my life. In Hebrew, she says, "Beremach evarai," which means in the 200 and something organs. It's an expression from the ancient Hebrew rabbis, Chazal. My Magen David, the symbol of Judaism, didn't get off me, this pendulum that symbolizes Judaism. It was beyond that, the words of the Lord of the universe and the song of virtue. She was singing Jewish hymns, Shir Ma'alot, and it spoke to her on a level that she never had before. She's transformed from this Israeli that's that likes being an Israeli, likes being Jewish, but is also a little distant with the criticism, to someone who feels this identity with all her heart. And if you read this in Hebrew, you even recognize that her language becomes more archaic, more biblical, or more rabbinical as she goes along here, as if the transformation of the trip also transforms her discourse. But it's not always, so we saw some political and national transformation, feeling that you're more Jewish, feeling more Zionistic, but Zionist, but there's also personal stories. I'll tell you something personal. I'm an only child, and me and my mom don't really get along. And this journey and the song Mother that the guide played, and the way you depicted the bonds between mothers and daughters in the Holocaust and everything at once made me truly appreciate what I have. And I'm sure that after the journey, right, there's the past where I was had the trouble with my mother, but after this very emotional, sentimental voyage, tour, rite of passage, after the journey, my relationship with my mother will change. So thank you, really thank you. And we saw a lot of quotes like this where people say, now I appreciate the life I had, now I appreciate my family. I'm going, we don't, in the article we have quotes, now I'll go visit my grandparents more. I will listen to their Holocaust stories more carefully. I will record them. So in some of the quotes, we even see a kind of joining together of, I will be a better member of my family and of my community, and I'll appreciate my life more, and taking on the role of witness to witnesses. But it's, the reports are not just about transformation. Yeah.
No, I'm saying that it's another theme.
Yeah, moving on to a new theme was individualization, or presenting that a kind of acknowledgement. Please acknowledge that I was here, or your role as a guide is to see me. I was here, I was seen. In the article, we call it I was seen, I was heard. So often it's part of the thank you. Thank you also for making room, right? Making room for me, giving me a place to shine and express myself for my grandmother's story in Warsaw. It moved me to tell the story to everyone, and your interest in my personal story made me happy. Notice how it moves from the grandmother's story in Warsaw. It's the grandmother's story. And as she's telling this in Warsaw, in Poland, in front of her group of peers and the guide, it becomes my personal story, her personal story. And it's also a moment where she could be seen, the student could be seen as an individual. And there are also moments of saying the trip was a success. I actually learned something new. Like in this example, one thing that I believe that you know, but still, the one who looks the least involved and focused, the one who looks sleepy, he's exactly the one who absorbs the most, the experience of the information. And I had the honor of being that one. So they keep saying, you know, we looked sleepy, I made noise, but I was actually listening. The notebook is an opportunity to say, no, it wasn't a waste of time. I wasn't just goofing off. I was actually listening. I learned. Sometimes this idea of I learned is presented by just repeating what the guide said. We had a lot of quotes where they just repeated things that the guide said, maybe some kind of saying, maybe even a joke, just to show that they were listening and they were there. It's kind of way to, as we're going to argue, the whole thing is to ratify the fact that the trip was a success, the journey was a success. And part of that is seeing the guide as someone who needs to remember, if not the individuals, then the group as a whole. They say things like, I hope we left our mark on you, because you totally left a mark with me. So they want to be remembered, they want to be seen, they want the notebook and to be possessed by the guide, almost like a graffiti that some tourists leave in historical places. Like I was here. The notebook is a way much more socially acceptable to show that they undertook the voyage and they actually did it. They sometimes want to be remembered as individuals. They sign their names, like the blonde, the one with the piercing in their brow, all kinds of things like that. The one who had eye infections, that's my favorite signature. They want to be seen, they want to be remembered, and the guide is given that role of the one who will remember that they actually underwent that journey, were changed, did learn, and now it's over and they can go back to Israeli society. And Gila, back to you.
Ken, thank you. Oh, actually, so actually we found, first of all, we found it really interesting, like so many small letters of those youth, and we found it very interesting to reveal from this those theme vectors that David was mentioning. So I want to find that, first of all, is the thing that to differentiate, to the aim of each one of the participants to differentiate themselves from each other. We're no longer a group, but we are unique people. As David said, they mark themselves physically. I'm the blonde one. I'm the one that was with red hair. I was the one that was harmed in my finger, or whatever, physically, and also with the subject that with my grandmother, my dad, like they differentiate themselves. It's not written here, but also they different themselves in the idea of that they learned. It means I've noticed, I've been there, I listened to you, and so it's not a group, it's a person. That's one thing. Another very important thing is awareness of the process. The people they're not unaware of the fact that they are being taken from Israel to Poland and back to Israel, and that this process has an aim. It's a social thing. It's a ritual of the civil society. It's preparing them for the army. It's strengthening their Jewish and Israeli identity. It's not something they are not aware of it. They're aware of the process. And this is another thing. The third thing is the transformation, which was really mentioned with few of the quotes. There is definitely before and after. Before and after, also in the personal level, I will have a better connections with my mothers. I will visit my grandchildren. I will be a better daughter, a better this, personally, and also socially, group. Not you can't say grouply, but in terms of group, yeah, that we were not so. I mean that. Not only personally in the family or friends context, but also in this Jewish and Israeli context. I'm more connected now to this Jewish identity. I'm more connected to my Israeli identity. I more feel a part of this Jewish historical chain through generations. It's not that they are not only aware of the process, but they mention the transformation. And I think that the most, I don't know, for me anyway, and they confirm the success. They actually, in this notebook, they tell you who they are. I'm the blonde one. They are aware of the process. They know what they were passed through. They agree, they approve that there is transformation, and they confirm the whole thing, the whole process that was successful by their signature. Actually, this notebook actually really shows us this rite of passage that is conducted in a group context, but now it is this is the one-on-one conversation or one-on-one contract signing between the guide and the person. The guide as a representative of the Mimsad, of the the institutional structure. So this is what actually, this is how we summarize the what we found in the notebooks. That actually the notebook shows the whole process. Each one says this is me. I'm aware of the process. This is there is a transformation, and I confirm it with my signature. And this is all in a notebook, in a thank you notebook. You want to add something?
We can add that in heritage tourism in general, and especially in the Poland journeys, there's a kind of anxiety of, is this even working? Is this a waste of time, or is this working? There's a lot of
the criticism refers to the fact
in Israel that, yeah, it's a waste of time. You're taking these silly teenagers. They're just excited to be out of the country with their friends. They're not really listening. And in a way, the whole idea of giving the notebooks and the thank you is a way to ratify and confirm that this actually worked. So our argument is not that the trips work because the teenagers say that they work. Our argument is that this is an interesting ritual that tries to confirm that it works. We are agnostic about is it working or not. The teenagers want to tell the adults that it is working. That's as far as our findings can get, because we are only we haven't tested if their actual transformation, just their reports about
but it's self-reported, and it's quite amazing because there's some research was done. Is it working, not working? But here you have the kids' notebooks that they confirm that it's working. You don't know, yeah. So this is really we found it very interesting anyway. And it's also and it's and actually this is the main application should be that if it is what we're saying, so actually this ritual of gratitude notebooks should be applied for all voyages like this, and not only in tourism in Poland, but in heritage tourism in general, because heritage tourism, not only of Israelis to Poland, aims to design identity and to design belonging to a culture. So if this writing and this gratitude to a guide is a positive, or it's an effective part of this ritual of heritage tourism, so it might be used in other contexts of heritage tourism, not only of Israelis in Poland. And of course, it allows the guides to develop a technique where they not only get feedback, not just that they're nice or interesting, but feedback of this aim of heritage tourism, of taking people, transforming them to something new, or more developed, or more mature, or more belonging, or whatever to this, in this case, to this Jewish heritage world, or belonging to a world. That's it, I think. Anyone? Thank you.
Thank you, Gila and David. That was indeed fascinating and entirely different. So I really liked how you talked about the process of differentiating, then awareness, self-awareness, and then transformation. So it really made me think that as if, they are working through their trauma and in the process being aware of themselves. So could you just elaborate a bit more on, because I'm curious to know about it, the methodology. You talked about the thematic coding to identify patterns. Could you just elaborate a bit more on that?
Sure. I mean, it's a pretty standard process. We didn't use any computer tools. We read through, each of us read through some of the notebooks, taking notes, and trying to see what the interesting quotes had in common, and then trying to see how these themes are related. Once we saw so many stories of transformation, and then this idea of rite of passage that already exists in the literature about the journeys really made sense for analyzing what the students, the teenagers are talking about.
So do you have like age-defined patterns as well, or groups?
Well,
Or
we didn't use, so in terms of the education system, it's always 17, 18-year-olds. So there wasn't any point of differentiating the age. We did have some older voyages, journeys with older people, but we didn't use them for this research.
Yeah,
So it's all 17, 18-year-olds. Yeah, I didn't mention that.
great, fantastic.
So this is an age when it's an age where rites of passage are very common in the Western world, and in Israel specifically, it's just before finishing high school and moving into the army, which is, of course, joining the army is also a kind of a rite of passage in Israeli society, not for everyone, but for a lot of people in Israeli society. So it's it's a period in their life where they have a lot of rites of passage and a lot of transformations.
Great, thank you. Thank you. That was really interesting. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
I have a couple, and I apologize. This is going to be a slightly insensitive question, or potentially insensitive. How do we create that transformation without also creating a bit of a victimhood culture in the younger generations? So that, what's that?
We don't. Of course, it's part of it. This victimhood. Yeah. Sorry, I stopped you. Sorry, sir. Please, yeah. Please
No. No, go ahead. I want to hear what your response is.
Look, this is the part of the criticism to these voyages is exactly this. It's exactly what you're saying. This victimhood position of this youth, and actually, as if it's what's the name of the book? Under the peat, under the flag, above the peats and above the flag. That's the name of Feldman's book. This is the main criticism to the voyages, that they take the Israeli youth, they make them victims through victimhood in Auschwitz, and then they are going up to Israel to the liberation, and of course this is part of the criticism, that why do we need to be victims? Why do we need to remind the youth that Maidanek can be operate? Anyway, they reminded us now that it can be also in Nir Oz, yeah. But why do we need to remind people that Auschwitz existed in order to make them proud and relevant to go to the Israeli Defense Force and have a country? Of course, this is the thing.
By the way, from the right and the left as well. Like the right says we need to be proud and not concentrate on our victimhood. The left says the victimhood is an excuse to victimize or turn into nationalism. So, but we saw in a lot of the I don't know if a lot, but some of the letters, they said, we expected you to make us feel like victims, but thank you for giving us perspective. So I think a lot of the guides are aware of, Gila, you know this
Yeah,
better than I
especially
do,
because we
are
took from
aware of
guys.
this danger. Are aware of this danger. There's a lot of empowerment that as part of the voyage, where you pick up an Israeli flag, you do feel safe. You know, this place where 50 years earlier would be the most dangerous place. Now you can walk around safely. There's a degree of empowerment, even.
Mm.
Would you say that's correct, Gila?
Yeah.
And you'll never hear me advocate that we shouldn't be teaching the youth or anybody about history and historical events. Do you know what specifically the guides are doing that introduces them to a different perspective, lets them experience the stuff, but kind of curtails any chance of it becoming toxic in the sense of I'm just a victim and there's an anti-Semite around every bush now, so that it is empowering, not victimizing? Do you know any specific tactics that the guides are doing?
Look, I said first of all, in order to be a guide, you have to be certificated mainly by Yad Vashem, and most of the guides are not maybe all of them, but intelligent people and the main thing is to show the complexity, yeah, also about evil, ordinary people, that it's not, we try to emphasize the complexity of not of evil and the acceleration of evil, how ordinary people can become evil, the how we try to show, and I'll say something more, another thing that I think that even maybe more important than the Holocaust, because Holocaust is actually difficult to explain in Poland. You go to Majdanek, to Auschwitz, it's a museum, and it's sometimes easier to wipe the Holocaust in front of a movie than in Majdanek, where you need a lot of mediation of a guide in order to understand something of what you're seeing, yeah. But what is more important in the Israeli context is actually the Jewish life that perished, because this is a country that was established yesterday. We don't have roots of nothing here. It was sent. This is off the research, yeah, but it was sent, and now it's a country. And going to Poland, which was the main jury of Jewish people before the Holocaust, 3.2 million people lived there, is an opportunity to see that we were not born in 1948, and a lot of attention is given to synagogues, to Jewish life, to the Jewish market, to the Jewish not only rabbis but charisma ishim, not people but
Leaders, religious
significant people,
leaders.
to show us that we were not born in 1948 in this Milchemet HaShixrur, whatever you call it in English, yeah. And this is important because people feel that there was nothing before, so there's a lot of emphasis to this, which is an important part of the voyage, and the complexity of evil, the fact that everybody can be evil, the fact that we have to watch ourselves in order to not become evil. And with a good guidance, it's an opportunity for speaking about morality, about people, about a lot of things that the classroom doesn't always offer. And also, I remember lots of times that in this summary of the voyage, there is somebody standing up and telling those kids, look, now you see how power can be dangerous. So in a minute, you'll have a power in your hands. You'll become soldiers. So you have to watch very carefully how you deal with power. So I think that this is the main thing. It's not the victim. It's true that it also has this part that look, if we don't fight for this country, chas v'chalila, we might find ourselves in Auschwitz. Of course, this is also part of the thing, but a large part of this voyages is the humanity and the morality and the escalation of evil and ordinary people. How come ordinary people become this battalion 101 in the book? Yeah.
Yeah, and also it must be said that to some extent, it's okay to feel a victim when your people have been victimized. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of suspicion for victim mentality, but also, suppressing it and having it unspoken about, that's also very dangerous. So if your people have been victimized, have been oppressed, that's part of your DNA. You have to acknowledge it. Otherwise, you're just going to repeat it or find yourself in the same situation. I think that goes for groups throughout the world. If your only identity is having been a victim with no pride, that's then you're in a bad place.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love hearing both of those things. The history informs the present. You can't escape it. So what I loved hearing is the exposure to the complexities of these things. As an historian myself, and when I'm teaching students on controversial things like abortion or other and slavery and the Holocaust, I have found that teaching the complexities of these things and recognizing nothing is so black and white as to just be able to point a finger and say, yep, these were the bad guys and these are the good guys, or these are the bad guys, these are the victims. So I love hearing that. Emphasizing the complexity, I think, is essential for historical accuracy and empowerment. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, anybody from the audience, any questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
You don't want to ask your own question? So Achinam wrote, interesting perspective on the subject. Thank you. Perhaps I missed it. Who are the students? Where do they live in Israel? Which organization led these journeys? In which year were these particular journeys? Do you observe changes over time? Also, are there any similar research on other groups and non-Israelis? Okay. So yeah, we didn't, because it's an international audience, we didn't want to go into too many details. These are all non-religious students. We discovered from informal questioning that the national religious students don't do this ritual. Maybe they have enough just theorizing that they have other rituals. Mostly from the center of Israel, but some from the north. Of course, a lot of, by and large, it's middle-class students because there's some self-funding. That's also part of the criticism of the journeys, that it's that only people who are better off can afford to send their children. Gila, these are the schools who sent the
Specifically,
students.
it's all, I think, all those notebooks are from Yad Vashem guides. And
Okay,
not
Yad
others.
Vashem guides, and the Ministry of Education supports the project, and it's the schools who send them. We did not, the
We didn't look
notebooks
over time.
are from around 2014, I think, to 2020 when the COVID struck. We didn't notice changes. It's also a very short period of time. There's a lot of difference in personality between the students within the notebooks, but we didn't really see. We focused on the larger picture more than the differences, sort of assuming that the students who are more better writers or have more patience to write represent the other students to some extent, at least to some extent. There are a lot of research on heritage tourism, even youth heritage tourism. For instance, there's the birthright taglit of Jews from around the world to Israel. There are similar projects in Europe, in Africa. So, but we didn't see anything about anything like heritage, gratitude notebooks. The perspective of rite of passage appears every once in a while in that literature, because it's really easy to compare those voyages or tourism to both rites of passage and pilgrimages. I hope that answers all of it.
Great. Any further questions, anybody? I don't see any.
Um,
All right. Then thank you guys again, and I'll let you have the final word, Gila and David. Thank you so much. You have the final word.
Yeah, thank you for everybody for listening. I hope you found this interesting. Yeah, and I'm glad that we didn't have any sirens during the presentation. Gila?
Yeah, we guessed it.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody.